I will now call the regular meeting of the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control Board to order. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, we are conducting the monthly board meeting today by video teleconference. The first item on the agenda to see if we have a quorum. I will conduct a roll call of board members that are present on this teleconference. When I call your name, please say here. Steve Sullivan.
Here.
Dr. Colbert.
Here.
Dr. May. Candace White.
Here.
Thank you. Marissa O'Neill.
Here.
Thank you. And Dr. Gers. Here. Thank you. Mrs. Hampton. Yes.
Dr. May is on. She just has not got audio yet.
Okay. Well, I would mark her. Thank you. Mrs. Hampton, do we have any introductions this morning?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am pleased this morning to introduce Patrick DeGangi as APCD's newest compliance officer. We're really pleased to have him here. It's nice to add new people to our staff, and I'm already hearing just really glowing reports, not just from his supervisors, but also from his coworkers. So glad he's here and making good contributions.
Thank you. Thank you for joining such a elite organization. Thank you. Any other introductions, Ms. Hampton?
No other introductions today.
Public recognitions, Ms. Hampton.
Only that it's really nice to see everyone. It's a big crowd.
Thank you. Approval of minutes. The minutes of the public hearing held on April the 20th, 2022 were distributed electronically for your review. Are there any changes to the minutes by board members?
For me.
Hearing none, the minutes are adopted. Thank you. Now to the regular meeting held on April the 20th, 2022. The minutes of the regular meeting held on April the 20th, 2022 were distributed electronically for your review. Are there any changes or upgrades to the minutes by board members? Hearing none, the minutes are adopted. Thank you. Public comment. Mr. Gurry, has anyone registered to make a comment this morning?
We have two. First is Nedra McNeil. Nedra, you're welcome to step up and make your comments.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Hilton. I'm here representing the Beachmont Neighborhood Association. As you are well aware, the Allnex Corporation spilled some polystyrene, I believe, into the sewers and impacted some of our neighbors. Some of those neighbors would like to have been here and couldn't make it, and so they've asked me to submit a letter that was written about that spill to you, and I've submitted it for your review. And so because of that, I'm not going to read it to you.
Okay.
But the long and short of it is that those concerned neighbors, myself included, are asking this board to express hesitation and due concern when considering renewing Allnex's permit the next time that permit comes up for review. And I hope that you all would take that the impacts that this spill has caused in our neighborhood and the history of the Allnex Corporation in the neighborhood into consideration when reviewing this permit. Thank you all for making it.
Well, thank you for coming and sharing your information with us. Are there any questions from the board members and coordinators? If not, I'm sure the board members will probably have a copy of the.
I have a copy of that, and I will send it to board members immediately after the meeting.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming.
Second public commenter, Councilwoman Nicole George.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here and see everyone. And I love living in Beachmont for the exact reason that my neighbors show up and we care about each other. I'm really just here today to thank you for your support and your work, reaffirm the work that you do, particularly as it relates to the support that was provided to the Beachmont neighborhood following the Allnex waterway contamination on March the 11th. Just as a reminder, neighbors in Beachmont do not need one more thing to do every day. And I'm specifically referring to reporting. For some people in Beachmont, depending on where you live, what block you're on, and particularly the east side of Beachmont, life is hard enough due to years of systematic disinvestment and years of living next to intensive uses. And so for that, I'm just here to say that we want to encourage continued support. We need you. It's hard for neighbors to know what to ask for. It's hard to know how to ask for proactive ways to be able to monitor and really be able to prevent future instances of contamination, particularly in a way that doesn't put undue burden on neighbors who already have limited capacity. So with that, I just want to thank you guys, reaffirm the work that you do, and look forward to continuing the work.
Well, thank you for coming and sharing your concerns. We really appreciate it. We like to hear more feedback and concerns from our citizens, because we all live here. So thank you again so much. Any questions? No. Thank you. Thank you again for coming. Mr. Gary, has anyone provided written comments? I think we do have.
Other than the letter from the Beachmont Neighborhood Association, no others.
Okay, well, thank you. Are there any members of the public in the Edison room that wish to make a comment? If so, raise your hand, and you will be called upon. Anyone in the Edison room wants to make a comment? Seeing none, okay. Are there any other members of the public that wish to make a brief comment on this teleconference?
I'm not seeing any raised hands. There might be directions.
Okay, if you want to make a comment, this is a feature you can find on your phone by pressing *3, and you will be called upon.
Still see no raised hands, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone wish to speak? Seeing none, okay. Well, that completes the public portion of the meeting, and I'd like to thank our two visitors for coming in and sharing your concerns and so forth. Thank you very much. Unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business today? No, sir. Okay. New business. We have a request to unencumbered funds from the Air Quality Trust Fund. Will the district please present this request? Mrs. King? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Hilton. I'm Michelle King. I'm Executive Administrator and Director of Program Planning at the Air Pollution Control District. The district is planning to bring two items related to the Air Quality Trust Fund for the board's consideration today. The Air Quality Trust Fund is a special fund administered by the board. It was established by state statute, and District Regulation 1.17 sets out policies and procedures for the receipt and the disbursement of money collected for the fund. This regulation also lays out how the funds may be used, including conducting and funding air quality research and development projects, special non-recurring air quality projects, and air quality education programs approved by the Air Pollution Control Board. The trust fund's current balance is $13,917.97. In 2019, the board approved up to $8,000 for the district to use in partnership with the Green Heart Project and a targeted messaging campaign in the research project's 6 neighborhood area. That targeted outreach effort was delayed significantly due to COVID-19, and the Green Heart Project has moved into new phases of their work, but those funds remain encumbered. The district first recommends that the board vote to unencumber the $8,000 approved for the targeted outreach campaign to the Green Heart Project neighborhood. If future opportunities for this targeted campaign become known, the district will bring a new proposal before the board. In the meantime, our regular outreach programs will continue to operate throughout the city, including in those neighborhoods. The district's recommendation is to unencumber $8,000 from the Air Quality Trust Fund.
Any questions from board members regarding this request? Okay.
Need a motion.
We have a motion to.
I'll make the motion. Second.
A second. Any discussion regarding this request? I will now take a roll call. Please unmute your mic and say yes if you wish to unencumber the funds. If no, if you do not. Steve Sullivan.
Yes.
Yes. Dr. Colbert?
Yes.
Dr. May? Candace White?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you can get those things, I'm gonna try to.
Thank you. Marissa
Dr.
Mill?
May on now.
Thank you. And Dr. Gersh?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. The funds will be, uncovered, thanks for board members, for your vote, so.
Next up, the district plans to recommend that the board vote to consider, or excuse me, that the vote board consider and approve a funding request from the Hope Fund, a 501c3 organization focused on empowering families and individuals to reimagine our community by working alongside them to build hope-based infrastructure and create sustainable resources. I want to ask, Byron, is Michelle on the?
I don't believe I've seen her join us yet.
I don't think we have our speaker guest in attendance right now, so we will table this to a future board meeting and bring that before the board.
Okay, so we want to table it to the next meeting.
I think it'll roll to unfinished business.
Okay.
If you join between now and the end, does that change?
Will that change?
We need a motion to postpone until the next board meeting, since it's on the agenda.
Can I hear a motion from the board members?
So moved.
Motion by, Dr. Covert, second.
I'll second.
Second by Russell Snell. So this, will be, tabled until the next board meeting.
We need a roll call vote.
Okay, so Steve Sullivan, you agree?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Dr. Covert?
Yes.
Dr. May? Probably yes. Candace White?
Yes.
Thank you. Russell Neal?
Yes.
And Dr. Daniel Gersh.
Yes.
So,
Can I ask a question of clarification?
Yes.
If it was no, what does that mean?
If someone didn't.
If we voted no, not to table, what does that mean?
It wouldn't come before the board
No.
right now. We'd have to start.
All over, okay.
Yeah.
so thank you.
Bring it back to board. Thank you.
So it has been properly voted on and moved that we will take this up at a future meeting. Thank you, board members. Okay, so that takes care of that. So that's the $3,000, Ms. King, that we got, okay. We'll put that on the agenda, okay. Committee reports, no committees met in the last month, so I don't think so. Staff report, Mrs. Hamilton.
Thank you, Chairman Hilton, and good morning, everyone. So Jefferson County, despite our being able to be back together today, I hate to be kind of a Debbie Downer, but we have climbed into the yellow or medium COVID-19 community level. So several members of the district staff attended last night's West Jefferson County Community Task Force meeting, and we heard about the Enviro Institute's monitoring of wastewater across Jefferson County to track community COVID infection. And this method of public health oversight, which includes reporting this data to the CDC, has become important in understanding COVID infections locally and nationally as community testing programs have been discontinued in large part. It's my understanding that this data is also publicly available on the CDC's National Wastewater Surveillance System, so if you're interested, you can track it that way. District staff are again joining today's meeting virtually to be sure that we have plenty of room here for social distancing and to allow staff to continue teleworking a couple of days each week. But we continue at this time, meeting with companies and the public in person at the Edison Center and also on-site at emission sources. Mask wearing at metro buildings, including the Edison Center, is encouraged by Public Health and Wellness, and there are masks available out in the hallway if you would like one. Public Health and Wellness recommends at this point that you talk to your healthcare provider about whether you need to wear a mask and take other precautions if you're at high risk for severe illness. So, with that, we really encourage everyone to continue each month before the board meeting, check our website and be sure that you're aware of how we'll be meeting. I hope that we'll be able to continue these hybrid meetings where we're both meeting in person and virtually but at some point in time, we may only be meeting virtually, so heads up on that. This is a very key issue. I will be sending you all an email containing this information after today's board meeting, but I want to let you know that last week, the Jefferson County Attorney's Office filed a petition for administrative hearing with the Office of the Kentucky Attorney General regarding several outstanding notices of violation for Swift Pork Company. In accordance with APCD Regulation 1.19, at the end of the administrative hearing, the board will consider the report recommended by the hearing officer, any exceptions, and you all will adopt a final order resolving the matter. In light of this, Regulation 1.19 prohibits the board from having any communications concerning the merits of a proceeding with a party to the proceeding, a person interested in the proceeding, a representative of the party, or another interested person, and other board members. That's right out of our regulation. Questions concerning case status or procedural requirements will be addressed to our Secretary-Treasurer, Byron Gary. This means that if you're asked a question about the litigation by the media, member of the public, or others, just refer them to Byron, and we'll be sure to address that issue. Once adopted by the board, as with any final action by the board or the district, it can be appealed. So, at this point, are there any questions?
I just have one thing. Well, let's clean the slate, because I think some of these go back to 2018, some of these violations.
So it is inclusive of the notices of violation that we have issued to date.
Okay.
We hope that this will be an incentive to avoid future notices of violation, but there's no guarantee that there won't be additional notices of violation in the future. It's simply the nature of our work to some extent.
Is this, not trying to get too involved with this, but some of these have been on this sheet for years.
So to some extent, what we do is we try always, as a matter, to try to settle enforcement issues. Where we have an opportunity to do that, it's advantageous for the district in that litigation is very expensive. It's advantageous to the community, and it's advantageous to the company because it returns everything to its status of compliance. We move forward from there. In this case, despite our best efforts, we've been unable to reach settlement. And that's why we're taking this step at this point.
Are the numbers on this sheet, what was in dispute? Like the $30,000 and the $20,000 and $3,000?
Those are the civil penalties that the district has assessed based on the notices of violation and the violations that have occurred.
And these are the numbers that they're arguing against Swift.
So without getting too much into the merits, we've been unable to settle them.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members?
What does that mean, unable to settle it? There have been repeated requests to settle
So
it?
we've entered into negotiations to try to settle these matters, as we do with every company we issue a notice of violation to, but in this case, we've been unable to come to an agreement.
Okay.
The specifics will be spelled out when it comes to you
Right.
at a later date.
Okay.
And would that be sometime down the road, or is that?
After the hearing officer issues his recommended
Right.
findings of fact, that recommended report from the hearing officer will come to you for your review, and you can adopt it in full, you can adopt it in part. We will be presenting that report to you.
Okay.
When we issue that report. It will be a little ways down the road, I can tell you, because we go through the full discovery process. And,
Is the cost of litigation borne by obviously the city, or does the company bear some of that as well?
So the district funds its enforcement program, both our county attorneys, 2 county attorneys and a paralegal that we pay the Jefferson County Attorney's Office for, and additionally, those litigation costs, we fund those. We use our civil penalty funds to support that work. Any other questions?
No, I just, my only concern that, people in the public, they keep saying, well, what's going on with this particular, company? And you said, well, Clark, you guys must be, soft on crime or something. So, you know, you get those comments. If you got a thing that's happened 4 or 5 years ago, people say, what are you guys doing down there?
So we've gone ahead and we're moving forward with this litigation at this point. And again,
Okay.
litigation is a very intensive
Okay.
undertaking. So on April 29th, US EPA issued an emergency fuel waiver, to allow E15 gasoline that uses a 15% ethanol blend to be sold temporarily during the summer driving season across the United States. Generally speaking, E15 is no longer sold after June 1st, and that is because it has the potential to contribute a little bit more to smog. So this action will increase fuel supplies. The Biden administration has estimated that fuel base may see a price decrease of up to 10%. And EPA does not expect any impact on air quality from this limited action. Their research has shown no significant impact on the evaporative emissions when the Reed vapor pressure waiver is extended. Across the river, they use Reed vapor pressure gas. Here, we use reformulated gas. E15 can be sold year-round in parts of the country that have a reformulated gas program. That's because we're lowering that vapor pressure through RFG and additive. This includes our area, so E15 gas is possible to be sold here, but the RFG requirement is not being waived. And that's because we're an ozone non-attainment area, and RFG is a federally enforceable measure in our state implementation plan that helps us control those ozone precursor compounds of nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds. So, as the board knows, we are a non-attainment area. We are working diligently to prepare a redesignation request that we will be submitting shortly to US EPA because we are attaining that standard. We've been working with our partners at the Kentucky Division for Air Quality on the Bullitt and Oldham County parts of that redesignation request. They, at the same time, have been preparing a almost parallel redesignation request for Northern Kentucky, and we've both been working hard with US EPA Region 4 to be sure that our redesignation request will sail through. That redesignation request relates to our National Ambient Air Quality Standard, and the board is aware, and the public may or may not be, National Ambient Air Quality Standards is part of the Clean Air Act that EPA implements, where they set the standard and they leave it to us to develop a plan to reach that standard. It's a fabulous continuous improvement plan in that every 5 years or so, EPA is required to go back and evaluate the best and most recent health-based science to be sure that the standard remains protective of public health and the environment. When that standard needs to be adjusted, they strengthen it by lowering it. There are 6 criteria pollutants under the National Ambient Air Quality Standard part of the Clean Air Act: carbon monoxide, lead, particulate matter, oxides of nitrogen, sulfur dioxide, and ozone. And I've mentioned before that we're likely to see a proposal from US EPA to strengthen the particulate matter standard later this summer. We think, reading between the tea leaves, that we'll see a revised standard between 8 and 10 micrograms per cubic meters. That would be below the current 12 microgram per cubic meter standard that we're currently working with. And of course, will be a bit of a stretch for us. We're currently around 10.4 micrograms per cubic meter. So 10 would be a marginal non-attainment. 8 would be a lot of work, but we'll have a lot of partners across the nation. And we will see when that proposal comes out where we stand.
You say partners, that means people in the same boat?
Yeah. There'll be a lot of the country at 8 micrograms per cubic meter. So along that same line, I believe I've mentioned that US EPA has taken up the ozone standard. We're currently working with the 2015 ozone standard of 70 parts per billion. And our understanding was that they would likely make a proposal on that standard next summer. Now, I'll confess, I really don't know what to make of this one, but late last month, EPA announced in a draft policy assessment for ozone for review and comment that the current ozone NAC of 70 parts per billion should be retained without change. I don't know whether they got ahead of their skis or exactly what happened, but as I understand it, members of the Clean Air Act Scientific Advisory Council, or CASAC for short, for ozone, who were to meet in June to conduct their peer review of the draft policy assessment, have since issued a memo last Friday announcing that they were pausing review of the draft policy assessment and planning on meeting to discuss EPA's draft findings instead of meeting to discuss the policy assessment. We're just not really sure what to make of that. We'll keep the board advised as we learn more about that work and what may have happened to keep that ozone work off track, but that's a weird one. So that brings me to lead. EPA has begun their review of the National Ambient Air Quality Standard for lead. We don't talk about that often here in Louisville because we don't have a lead source. And once EPA took lead out of gasoline, it really reduced those ambient levels of lead. In fact, to the point where here in Louisville, we were able to demonstrate that our area no longer needed to monitor for lead. The standard for lead is 0.15 micrograms per cubic meter on a 3-month average. The last time we monitored it, it was 0.008 micrograms per cubic meter on that 3-hour average. So what that means is we'll follow that work closely to begin to understand what that change in a standard, if they advocate for that, might look like in our area. Sometimes they change the numeric value, that 0.15 microgram per cubic meter. It might change to something 0.10. Sometimes they change the averaging period. That's a place where it's a little harder to keep track of things as the numbers change over the years, but we'll be watching to see what EPA does. Right now, lead is still used in some aviation gases, but for the most part, lead exposure in our community is a legacy of housing. And the health department has a wonderful program to try to work to reduce that lead exposure from older housing stock. Again, we'll keep the board advised on all of these rulemakings by US EPA and proposals, and as soon as we understand the direction they're going, we'll advise the board. Changing and strengthening the National Ambient Air Quality Standard. Finding areas that aren't meeting those standards are not punishment. It's not a failure on the part of an area to not be meeting a strengthened standard. It is the process of the Clean Air Act, and that is to continually improve air quality. I was at a talk earlier this week, and the speaker used this phrase of an inch is a cinch and a yard is hard. And if you look at the last 50 years of air pollution control and the differences in our air quality from then to today, that continuous improvement process is extraordinarily effective in reducing air pollution while at the same time allowing for robust economic development. All right. APCD is required to review its annual criteria pollutant data, which includes ambient concentration data and quality assurance data for the criteria pollutants that I've mentioned. Again, we don't monitor lead here, so that one's excluded. But we have to submit all that data each year to US EPA's air quality system and then notify EPA that we've done so and our data is ready for certification. That deadline is May 1st. This year, we submitted our ozone data in early January for early certification in support of our redesignation request. but I'd like to thank our air monitoring team, Billy DeWitt, Tom Law, Brian Harris, and their teams of outstanding quality control and quality assurance professionals for submitting the remaining data on April 30th of this year. This is very important work for the agency, important work for the community, and these folks spend a tremendous amount of time being sure that our data is valid and defensible.
So is this middle on May 1st, everything, I mean, was Ozone updated, and was that the only thing submitted in January? I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
So the data that was submitted was for 2021. So all of our ozone data, actually, we had 2 ozone season submittals. We submitted our ozone season data early in January, but because we monitor ozone year-round at our Cannons Lane N-Core multi-pollutant site, we also submitted that entire year's worth of data by January 21st. So next year, everything should be on that. Hopefully we won't have to early certify ozone data next year, but everything should be ready for submittal by May 1st. Since the last board meeting, our national advocacy organizations, the Association of Air Pollution Control Agencies, or APCA, and the National Association of Clean Air Agencies, or NACA, have hosted or are currently hosting their annual spring conferences with our national peers, our EPA partners, and leading scientific and technical experts. These meetings are tremendously helpful for the agency. No one in this agency knows the Clean Air Act. It takes all of us working together as a team in order to implement the Clean Air Act. It's that large, and it takes us as a national group to manage the regional pollution and also to share best practices and lessons learned and upcoming problems, because that strength in numbers makes this work that much more achievable. We hear generally at these conferences on a regular basis about energy sector technology, transmissions, and emissions. They're a big elephant in the room. They generate a lot of emissions. So they're a large part of those conversations. The ozone and particulate matter national ambient air quality reviews, EPA's air and radiation priorities, including air toxics, air monitoring advances, including sensors, modeling, mobile sources, and environmental justice. And those are regular topics at all of our meetings. This year's a little different. This morning, those of us who will be leaving this meeting and joining the National Association for Clean Air Agencies Conference, we'll be hearing about the Ukraine effect, geopolitics, energy markets, and emissions, because quite frankly, air pollution really doesn't abide by jurisdictional boundaries. We have international transport of air pollution, and again, that energy section and sector is a large contributor to that pollution. Later today, we'll be talking about cumulative impact, assessments and tools, and also multi-pollutant strategies for stationary sources. These organizations and that national peer network help us to improve our work and improve public health and protect air quality. And again, we couldn't do this by ourselves. Our advocacy groups also regularly meet with lawmakers, both at the Hill and at state and local levels. They advocate on our behalf for policy and regulatory issues, as well as funding. Recently, NACA submitted written testimony to Senate Appropriations Subcommittee asking for $500 million, which is $178 million more than the President's proposed budget for EPA for fiscal year 2023. And that's to adequately fund the Section 103 and 105 federal grants that support our programs. Nationally, these federal grants were approximately the same in fiscal year 2022 as they were in fiscal year 2004. NACA noted in its testimony, and we appreciate it, that this represents a substantial decrease in purchasing power when inflation is factored in during a time when air quality issues have become even more complicated and costly to address. So our funding is an ongoing issue at the federal level, and we'll keep the board advised as the federal budget process continues. So this morning, I'm really happy to let the board know that we will be releasing tomorrow a new dashboard that visualizes past odor service requests performed by the district. The dashboard will be on the district's air quality data webpage, which includes a collection of data on Louisville's air, which is presented in different reports, graphs, and maps. So as a visual learner, I like to look at information in a variety of ways, and we are helping people to see what air quality looks like. The new dashboard will provide a visual representation of the odor service requests performed by the district. So these odor service requests are a digital record of investigations by the district in response to an odor or other community compliance complaint from a citizen. Our open burn and dust complaints will not be part of this dashboard. The dashboard visualizes the path through a map and graph, allows the user to filter the odor service request by date, zip code, and status. It's not in real time, though. For those who are interested in real-time odor information, I really do recommend that you download the Smell My City app. Its visualization page is very helpful, and you can take a look at that, not just for Louisville, but across the country. We'll be rolling this out tomorrow via Gov Delivery and on our website. A short tutorial video on the dashboard will be available. And as always, additional questions, comments, or ideas on the dashboard or anything that the district is doing are encouraged and should be sent to us through an online email form or brought to the board. Putting our odor complaint data together has been a challenging task due to some of the limitation with Metro's Acela data system. Anyone who has tried to use the app for Metro 311 understands these limitations. We will continue to provide the board and the public a monthly report on all of our community complaints, including odors, through the Complaint Investigation Status Report. I am grateful to Michelle King, Ben Jacobs, Matt Mudd, Kyle Zimmerman, Steve Gravett, and our compliance officers for their leadership and commitment to presenting this data in a more usable and accessible format. So if you're signed up to receive a Gov Delivery notice from the district, look for an announcement in your email box tomorrow or visit our website and take a look at the dashboard. We will be bringing a presentation to the board next month, and we'll share that with you then. Are there any questions on my report to this point?
We say it's not real time, how much out of phase is it, a month or so?
It'll be updated quarterly.
Quarterly?
But again, all those requests, you'll see those in your monthly board report.
Just careful presentations.
Yep. All right, so last year we have a presentation this morning on our Air Quality Action Partner Program. In 2021, the district launched the Air Quality Action Partner Program to encourage local businesses to help improve air quality in Louisville and help avoid exceedances of the National Ambient Air Quality Standard. The ACAP program recognizes these partners that voluntarily go beyond what is required to help the air that we all breathe. And today, the district is going to share the results of the first-year commitment from these companies and recognize their voluntary contributions.
Thank you.
Gary?
Board members, thank you for having me back again to talk about this program. I spoke a little bit last month about just where we were in announcing year 2 of the program and making sure we got word out about signups for that. These first few slides will seem very familiar. We've gone over it a few times. It occupies most of my time as a regulatory coordinator for the district, so it never hurts to review. Just a reminder, we were designated non-attainment for ozone back in 2018 after that 2015 standard came out, and that triggered a series of requirements that came into place. We have met all of those up through August of last year, except for that attainment deadline. The decision by EPA to designate us, to reclassify us to moderate non-attainment was based on 2018 through 2020 data. That proposal did come out back on April 13th. I believe I announced that last month. If that is finalized, it will kick in even further requirements shown on the timeline here. But fortunately, more recent data, that 2019 through 2021 data, shows us back in attainment, and that's what we're using for that redesignation request that Director Hamilton spoke about a minute ago. And just a brief reminder on the sources of the ozone precursors, NOx and VOCs shown here. All the NOx sources are in blue, first non-point, then non-road, on-road, and point. And there's a little breakdown there showing that sources of ozone precursors are both very numerous from a whole bunch of different small sources. You can see that large bar up here of consumer and commercial solvent use. That's every time you use a cleaner, a personal care product, anything that smells good at your home, it releases some amount of VOCs into the air. There are also a few very large sources like the LG&E Mill Creek generating facility down in southwest Louisville. And there, it also shown there is the angel share emissions of VOCs, that's ethanol released from aging of bourbon in the area. That's important to point out because these bars also are not always the best representation because there are a variety of different kinds of VOCs. For example, ethanol released from bourbon aging tends to be less reactive in the air than some of the other emissions, such as some of the consumer and commercial solvents that you guys use, as well as, that we all use, as well as some of the more reactive compounds we see, for example, coming out of rubber town. So after that non-attainment designation, we started up the multi-pollutant stakeholder group. The idea was to address our ozone non-attainment status, but take a holistic approach to that, trying to address other pollutants that we'd have trouble with, including air toxics and particulate matter in particular that we've struggled with here in Louisville. And to identify programs that we could use to voluntarily, before those moderate non-attainment requirements kick in, try to avoid that bump up. I helped facilitate the Point Source Committee. This is a list of 3 of the recommendations out of the Point Source Committee that sort of spurred the Air Quality Action Partners program. They included things like encouraging companies to take part in voluntary programs that already exist, such as the EPAD program and the Kentucky Pollution Prevention Coalition Center, sorry, KPPC. I just say the acronym usually, so I forget what it stands for, and the EPAD program. And also to start a program to recognize companies who do those sort of voluntary things, particularly focusing on air quality alert days, which are those days where we have a forecasted exceedance of one of the NACs. So just a quick overview of 2021. We started this program with different tiers in mind, ranging from our air quality action partners all the way up to platinum level partners, depending on sort of what they signed up to do. Air quality action partners just signed up to get alerts and distribute them to their company and find 1 or 2 little ways to try and avoid emissions, particularly on air quality alert days, all the way up to the platinum level partners who agreed to not only quantify the effect of their commitments that they made, but also make at least a 5% reduction in one of the key areas, or commit to a certain numerical quantification, such as a 5% turnover of fleet towards low emission vehicles. We ended up having 26 signups, 4 of them in the platinum, 9 in gold, 10 in silver, and 5 as just that air quality action partner level. This is what ended up coming out of the certifications that we received. We reached out to all those companies to ask them what they actually did. Only 6 of them, which to me was a bit of a surprise considering the turnover we see at companies on a regular basis, ended up not being able to meet their commitments. And most of those were actually at the air quality action partner level. A lot of them were smaller facilities who had 1 person in charge of this program who left in the past year or something like that. Didn't have anybody else left to take care of it. The only bigger one was GE, and that was just 1 large contact who was in charge of this program for them, but they have decided to join the program again this year. As a result of seeing some of those turnover and how that affected the ability to certify, we asked for a secondary contact to be listed on force this year so that hopefully they have communicated internally and have some sort of system to make sure that they follow through. But we did have 4 platinum level partners still follow through. That was all 4 that, well, 3 of the ones that signed up plus 1 gold level partner actually stepped up and made a bigger follow through than they had intended to originally. The 1 platinum partner who didn't quite make it still managed to certify as a gold level partner. Total avoided emissions from those quantifications, those gold and platinum level partners who sent us a quantification, these are just a few samples. The weight folks reported was kind of all over the place, so these are the ones that I was able to add up easily. But there were 80 tons of avoided emissions of nitrogen oxides during the ozone season last year, attributable at least in part to this program, and that doesn't include the 40% reduction that LG&E quantified for that year. There were also about a ton of particulate matter avoided and almost 30,000 tons of greenhouse gases avoided because of the actions taken as part of the Air Quality Action Partner Program. One of the perks for the gold and platinum level partners was that we stated we would recognize them all before the board. I'm going to go through them somewhat quickly and point out a few that made specific steps. And they will each receive a certificate as shown on the screen after this meeting, signed by Director Hamilton. So our first one was Altiglass International. They avoided about 82 pounds of CO2. Next was Bakelite Synthetics. They had a large reduction in SO2 that wasn't quantified there, actually only 32 pounds, but 487 pounds of NOx avoided during the season. The Chemours Company, 453 pounds of CHCl3. Matt, help me out.
It was R23.
Okay. Thank you. Eaton Corporation was one of the smaller partners that really stepped up. They were one of the first ones to sign up for the program and also one of the first ones to certify. Smaller company, and their main contribution was avoiding running their generators and cycling through their chilling cycles at their plant on air quality alert days. So all of their emissions reductions were specifically on air quality alert days by avoiding those actions. Lubrizol Advanced Materials, Rowan Haas, and Theon, three more of our rubber town partners that we see stepping up in this case. And then I think on to the platinum level partners. So ASRC originally committed to making at least a 5% reduction in particulate matter as a result of changeover of their boilers to natural gas. They haven't completed that project yet, but they still managed to avoid 70 tons by themselves of NOx emissions last year. That's a reduction over their 2017-2018 baseline. They also avoided 29,000 tons themselves of CO2. That was a large portion of those greenhouse gas emissions avoided. Chemics, I struggle with saying that one, was the one that stepped up from gold level to platinum partner. They realized during the year that their overhead natural gas-fired forced air heaters were requiring either repair or replacement. They decided to just go ahead and replace all of those. They didn't achieve all of their reductions last year. They finished up that project at the beginning of this year, but having a large project like that committed to bump them up to a platinum level partner. Eckert Corporation America avoided 11% of their fine particulate matter specifically, an 11% reduction in fine particulate matter last year. And then the Mill Creek Generating Facility, in large parts attributable, I think, to the same actions that you guys saw, again, with the agreed board order that was agreed to with them for this year on an ongoing basis. The past couple of years, they have made significant reductions in NOx emissions, especially in part by running their controls more efficiently, aiming for using their controlled units more often than the uncontrolled units, especially during the ozone season. Just really quickly, 2022 signups. There was a bit of a change this year. We decided to change to an online form to make it a little easier for folks to sign up, we thought. There was a bit of a trouble with the signups for the first couple of weeks. Not everything folks were committing to was coming through to us for some reason. It just got lost in the ether of the internet. So I'm still working with 6 companies that signed up but didn't meet the requirements. They probably did. We just did not get all of their commitments. So they're not listed here. Hopefully we can get them rolled back into the program as soon as I can get those commitments confirmed from them. Also wanted to note, it is open this year to all companies, not just those permitted and registered facilities we were targeting last year. We only had 6 folks outside of our permitted and registered sources who have signed up so far. We're hoping to keep expanding this every year though, and while it's too late to be recognized at this meeting, obviously, anybody can sign up at any time. So feel free to see the link that is in this presentation. The presentation will be posted to our meeting page after. This is the first page of the list of folks that signed up this year. I think so far we have 26 of those valid ones. I'm still actually reaching out to more than I thought, 9 actual other folks to try and get them. Hopefully we can get all of those folks signed up and have 35 total, which would be a big jump over last year. This is the second page. One of the other changes is that everybody who signs up is now just being recognized as an air quality action partner. They did sign up for different levels of commitments. Once they certify is when we'll recognize them as gold or platinum level partners, just like I did a moment ago for the 2021 partners. Here are those committed levels, though, what hopefully we end up seeing next year. We actually jumped up to 6 platinum partners this year. I think that's because a couple of the folks who were gold level partners decided to step up to that platinum level. We only have 5 gold level this year, as well as 7 silver level action partners and 8 air quality action partners. All 6 of those non-permitted facilities are just recognized at the air quality action partner level. So most of our permitted and registered facilities agreed to take a step above and beyond just that basic level. And that's all I have. Glad to answer any questions from the board at the chair's discretion. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to Ms. Hamilton.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
In regards to folks who achieve their commitment in the board, I mean, you send something from the district itself. Is there a press release? Some of these folks want PR.
We're going to send out a press release after the meeting today. It doesn't name all of the companies specifically, but they will also be listed on our website. We're going to update that. They're already all listed on the website at what they committed to last year. We'll be updating that. It'll be linked in the press release with that updated list of recognitions.
Any other questions?
Excuse me. Go ahead. Go. All right, thanks. I'm just curious, in order to assess the impact of the program, first of all, let me get one thing straight. Is it just the platinum members, or is it the platinum and gold members that quantify their reduction?
Both gold and platinum quantify. The platinum level jump up is committing to a specific % reduction, a specific amount reduction, or a specific amount changeover in their fleet, some target level. So all the gold level partners quantified, but they didn't commit to that next step up of a certain target level.
I see. And some of the numbers you gave were in pounds or tons, and others were in percentages. Also, so it's a little hard to, weigh the impact of this. And in addition, I wonder, for those companies that quantify their reductions, which total about 10 or so?
There were
10, something like that.
There were 11, 7 gold partners and 4 platinum.
Yeah. So for those companies, what's their share of the total amount of NOx emissions and VOC emissions in Louisville?
That's a good question.
Yeah, a good thing to know.
That's certainly something that I'm glad to try and make that comparison of, pull them out of our, maybe put them up on against this chart or something like that to show their overall portion of those 2017. These are 2017 emissions. It's the most recent national emissions inventory. So we probably show their 2017 emissions against that, maybe. Certainly an idea.
Yeah, just some way to get an idea of the overall impact.
But your other point about it being sort of all over the place as far as how I'm talking about the reductions, this first year, because it was such a new program, we didn't have like a specific form for folks to report their quantification on. So it was just up to the company to report however they felt they could. We were trying to make it as easy as possible for them as well. And it, as well, was definitely a learning process for us. So that might be something that we try to standardize in the future. But right now, we're just trying to get those commitments and get something back from them showing that they followed through and were able to show the effect of them. But it did make it difficult to show these avoided emissions. This slide in particular is not even all of the quantification. These are just the ones that I could, that had in pounds and tons and could easily add up. to those total tons. So there's actually even more than this in those quantifications.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, somebody.
I have two questions. One is, with the recurring reduction, so like the greenhouse gas, for instance, fuel switch to that gas. So would they count that again this next round?
So the way we phrased it on the checklist for the quantification, so they can quantify anything, generally we ask for the platinum level partners, they commit to about 5% reduction. To make the comparison in the same way we do for evaluating new source review sources. So in the NSR regulations, there's a way to calculate your baseline generally over the past 5 or 10 years, taking 2 years as your baseline and then comparing the current emissions to that. They might be able to for an additional year until, you know, they sort of age out of that NSR baseline and that's the new standard. At that point, hopefully they think about how else they can start reducing emissions a little bit more to get back up to that level. But that's how the baseline is calculated.
Okay, so there's a baseline. And then my other question was on greenhouse gas emissions. There's several cases in the county where there have been, you know, verified greenhouse gas reductions using protocols developed by the Clean Air cars and some of those other registrars. Anyway, I'm just curious if those with those nothing to want to report on.
You talking about vehicle and fleet, say, from a company?
Well, like for instance, rehab and you know, they provide things to the and they get greenhouse gas reduction credits because it's cold biomass. So this occurs every year. I just wondered if that's something that would be included in this program or
So those point source emissions would come quantified the same way as NSR, so it would be the emissions from that source. So recaps, for example, if they switch to biomass, the reduction in CO2 out of their stack is what we would be looking at, not any upstream benefit from switching to biomass or something like that. There was a separate category of commitments that folks could make, changing over vehicle and fleet emissions, things like idling reduction too, as well as committing to changing over their fleet, as well as add-on controls, NOx retrofits on diesel fleets and things like that. Those could all be counted, whether they're, you know, at that facility or while they use their fleet throughout the community. But that's how we weren't looking at the sort of upstream and downstream impacts of those other projects. That's a little bit beyond the scope of my expertise anyway.
We're focused on the next.
Yeah, and that was the focus. The greenhouse gases were just sort of a knock-on effect. Those weren't even one of the categories where folks could achieve that platinum level. That was one that we would accept quantification on, so that it's a great add-on benefit, but it wasn't one of the categories of emission reductions that qualify for platinum level.
Are there any other questions from board members?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes the district's report.
Well, thank you for excellent report, and Mr. Gary, thank you for that timely information. Appreciate that. Both of the presentations were great. Thank you. Moving on to our quality data report. These reports were distributed electronically for your review. Are there any questions by board members regarding our quality data report? I think I have everything. Our toxic report. And enforcement status report. And excess emission report. See anything? And the complaint and investigation status summary. Any questions regarding that summary? I don't have any questions or comments. Any board members have any questions? So, that seems to complete our agenda for this morning. And again, I want to thank everyone for our adjourned meeting. I will now adjourn the regular meeting of the board, and thank you for your participation. The next board meeting is Wednesday, June 15th at 10 a.m. Thank you.